5:30, Tokyo. A driver checks in at the depot while the city is still half asleep. This isn't a special journey, this is routine work, the kind of trip that happens every day. He picks up the truck, does a quick walk around and pulls out, because the timer has already started. This is where the job really starts, at the dock. A scanner confirms the shipment, pallets go in, straps tighten, paperwork gets checked, then the doors close. Now, it's not just any delivery, it's a delivery window. A promise, not just to deliver today, but to deliver in a specific time slot. Miss that slot, and somewhere down the line, a factory can sit waiting, burning hours of productivity. As he merges on the expressway, Tokyo fades behind him, and the road fills with trucks. Different companies, different cargo, same direction, same pace. A steady stream, one after another, all day. After a couple of hours on the road, halfway to Nagano, he pulls into a service area for a quick stop, fuel, coffee, a short break. Then, straight back out, all calculated to stay on schedule. Back on the road, the route climbs. Tunnels flash by. The exits start to count down. After finally arriving in Nagano, the truck reaches the destination on time, just as planned. The driver unloads the contents of the truck, scans the relevant documents and gets the signature. Inside the delivery window, like it's supposed to be, just like any other day. But if we step back and look at the route, the journey started close to a rail terminal. The drop-off point is close to rail, and the corridor between Tokyo and Nagano runs alongside major rail infrastructure. And this is Japan, famous for trains that run on the minute. So if rail was right there, why do companies still choose trucks instead? To answer why rail wasn't part of the Tokyo to Nagoya delivery, we have to rewind, back to a Japan that rebuilt itself on trains. Right after the war, rail wasn't just supporting the economy, it was the main transport system. In 1950, rail carried about 92% of passengers travel and roughly 52% of freight measured by distance traveled. And the network was built to do both. Passenger trains and freight trains shared the same main lines, the same corridors, the same choke points. For a while, the timetable had room to do both. Freight could fit. Then Japan enters its high growth era. From the mid-1950s into the early 1970s, the economy grows at close to 10% a year, over and over again. Factories expand, cities grow, and commuting demand explodes. And suddenly, those shared rail corridors start to get congested. They feel crowded. You can see the shift in freight numbers. By 1960, rail share of domestic freight is down to about 39%. And by 1980, it dropped to just 8%. That's not a slow drift. That's the system flipping in one generation. So, what changed? Japan's railways became a passenger-first system. As cities exploded and commuting became daily life, the timetable filled up, especially on the Tokyo-Osaka corridor. Trains ran minute after minute, with no room for disruption or delays. Because even small disruptions can ripple across the whole network. The symbol of that shift is the Shinkansen. The Tokaido Shinkansen opened in 1964. And it didn't just make trains run faster, it changed passenger expectations. Trains were expected to arrive exactly on time. Punctuality became the norm. And once rail is built around that kind of punctuality, there's less room for anything that cannot fit neatly into the schedule. Every passenger train added to the schedule was one less slot for freight. It wasn't bad, but it got pushed to the margins. Late nights, early mornings, smaller windows. And when you're operating in those gaps, you lose the buffer. If something slips, there are fewer places to make the time back. And there's another problem. Rail freight rarely moves in a straight line. A truck can go from one door to another. Rail usually adds extra steps. Drop off at a terminal transfer, then pick up at the other end. That means more handling, more complexity, more waiting. Unload, wait, reload. And when you're working around a tight schedule, those extra steps are where time disappears. So shippers start looking for a way to cut them out. And at that exact moment, Japan is building the alternative. In 1963, Japan opens its first expressway sections. It's the start of a new backbone, fast roads that link cities directly, day and night, without waiting for a train slot. And the network grows fast. By 1973, it reaches about 1,000 kilometers in service. Now the choice isn't rail or nothing anymore. It's rail or a truck that can go direct. By 1960, you can already see the shift starting. Motor vehicles are about 39% of passenger trips, and trucks are about 15% of freight by ton kilometers. And trucks keep getting more capable, better roads, bigger loads, more predictable trips, and most importantly, they don't need a timetable slot. That changes shipper behavior, because the middle step can disappear. No terminal transfer, no waiting for a train slot, just load at the dock and go. And right as the road flexibility arrives, Japanese industry starts demanding a new kind of logistics. In 1963, Toyota introduces a new production philosophy, what the world would later call lean. It's built around just in time, using simple signals to pull parts only when they are needed. And by 1965, that same logic is spreading to suppliers. The idea is straightforward. Inventory is expensive, storage is cost, and big buffers can mask problems. If something is late or broken, you don't feel it until the power runs out. So, parts shouldn't arrive early, just in case. They should arrive when they're needed and in the amount required. That mindset doesn't stay inside Toyota. It's spread across Japan's manufacturers. Batches get smaller, schedules get tighter, buffers get thinner. And that changes the transport question too. It's no longer what's the cheapest way to move this. It becomes, can you hit the delivery window every time? Rail can be efficient, but trucks give you control. Leave when you're ready, go door to door, adjust on the fly, and still make the slot. And that's how the system gets set, because even when tracks are nearby, the hard part usually isn't the distance, it's timing and the handoffs in between. Fast forward to today, and the shift is still here. It didn't reverse, it became normal. Japan still runs freight trains, but trucks became the default. By weight, road freight does almost everything. Around 9 out of 10 tons moved by truck. And if you measure by distance moved, the work that keeps an economy running, road is about 56%, coastal shipping is about 40%, and rail is only about 4%. The big picture is simple. Japan runs on trucks. Rail still matters, but mostly where it naturally fits. Containers, port cargo that moves in big batches, and long-haul corridors where a buffer is possible. But even there, freight is working around a constraint, the passenger timetable. That's why so many key freight trains run at night, leaving late, arriving before dawn. Not by choice, because that's when there's space. The daytime schedule is built for passengers first, and freight fits into what's left. For decades, Japan made that work because the system had something you don't notice until it's gone: slack. Extra driver hours, extra warehouse buffer, extra time in the schedule. Just enough to absorb the days when a pickup slips or a dock runs late. But that breathing room is disappearing. Japan's workforce is shrinking and aging, so there are simply fewer people available for jobs like trucking. And trucking is a hard sell. Long hours, tough schedules, and a lifestyle fewer young workers want to sign up for. At the same time, the work itself has gotten more demanding. Delivery windows are getting tighter. Shipments are more fragmented. Stops multiply. And a driver's day gets eaten up not on the highway, but while waiting, loading and unloading. For years, the system coped by stretching the workday. When things ran late, drivers just worked longer to make it fit. But that pace wasn't sustainable, so the government stepped in with tighter overtime rules to protect workers. Truck drivers now face a hard annual overtime cap, 960 hours. It's a safety win for the workers, but it also hits trucking directly. Fewer legal hours means less capacity and less room to savor the late day. This is where people outside Japan often say, "Okay, so use trains. Japan has rail everywhere." And the obvious follow-up is, why not just build more rail? Japan can build rail, but the big new builds are passenger projects, because that's where the demand and financing is. Freight would need not just track, but terminals and yard space in the hardest places to find it. And it still depends on trucks at the ends. Inside Japan, the answer is more complicated and more practical. Passenger rail punctuality isn't a preference, it's a promise the whole system protects. On dense corridors, making room for freight isn't just rearranging the schedule, it means touching the surface Japan is famous for. And even when rail is nearby, the hard part often isn't the long middle distance, it's what happens before and after the train. Terminals, transfers, waiting, the handoffs where time disappears. The trains can move fast, but the handoffs run on cutoffs. Miss a terminal cutoff by a few minutes and you're not a bit late, you're waiting for the next departure. And that same lost time shows up everywhere, which is why one of the biggest bottlenecks hides in plain sight. Time lost around loading bays. When trucks are in short demand, the fastest capacity gains aren't always new infrastructure. They're hours recovered from queues, from slow turnarounds, from drivers sitting still. So the debate stops being rail versus truck. It becomes capacity, labor, and reliability under constraints. And Japan's response isn't one dramatic switch, it's an efficiency push, getting more out of what already exists. Run fuller trucks, cut empty runs, consolidate shipments so one driver moves more per shift. Make warehouses less of a bottleneck. Appointments, smoother receiving, faster turnarounds, so drivers spend fewer hours parked and more hours driving. And when speed isn't a top priority, Japan leans on geography. Coastal shipping becomes an extra outlet. Bulk cargo that doesn't need to arrive today can go by sea, freeing scarce driver time for the deliveries that do. Japan can do that because it's an island nation. Moving freight along the coast in big batches makes sense. But ships don't replace trucks inland. Cargo still has to travel over land to reach factories, warehouses, and stores. Rail gets attention too, but it's targeted. Not make rail do everything, but make rail do more what it already fits. Better terminals, fewer handoffs where time disappears, more capacity in a container corridor that already works. And rail hasn't vanished, it's stabilized. After the big post-war drop, it stays small but steady. And in some lanes, it inches upward where the containers and fixed schedules actually fit. Even automation shows up in the same pragmatic way. On the Shin-Tomei Expressway, on the main Tokyo to Nagoya corridor, Japan is already testing automated heavy trucks in real traffic, often at night in lanes set aside for the test vehicles. The goal isn't driverless everywhere, it's to automate the long expressway stretch between logistic hubs, so drivers can swap or rest, with remote monitoring and roadside sensors, so one small delay doesn't snowball into a bigger problem. Now, go back to that Tokyo to Nagano run. Right now, it arrives on time because the system can still absorb disruption, a late pickup, a slow unload, a shortage in one corner of the network. It bends, but it doesn't break. But if capacity tightens far enough, the problem won't just be late, it will be fewer available trucks, fewer deliveries, less certainty. So the question isn't, why don't they use rail? It becomes, what happens when the flexibility runs out.